Well, we're talking about the finances of the Isle of Man and reserves, and we've had an interview at MTTV with Alf Cannan, who got the response to his written question from Mr Teare. And Mr Cannan says he was surprised, a bit shocked that this £100 million is going to be taken out of reserves. Your comment?
The comment is that in last week's sitting at Tynwald, I made a statement on Cap Thing, Singer and Freelander, and in that I did say that we'd be having a look at what we needed to do to comply with the report which had been produced by the committee which investigated the collapse of KSF, which recommended that there be £100 million put in a separate fund, so that, heaven forbid, if there was another claim on the fund, it would be pre-funded. But I did say that we were having a look at it again and that I would be reporting back to Tynwald by the end of the year, so there's no change. And I must admit I'm somewhat confused in the light of that answer. What's the issue now?
Well, he thought it was on the runway, then it disappeared, and now it seems just crept back in, I think. You know, this was the sort of thoughts there. Yeah. But I mean, I can't speak for him, but you know what he said.
Yeah.
So.
No, we've been consistent. I did pull it at the budget. I said for more debate, more explanation, so people realise what we're trying to do and why we were doing it, because this was to comply with a motion which we passed in Tynwald in July last year. So we acknowledged the motion last year and we were taking steps to comply with it. Now, I appreciate that there's a different house in place now and we need to explain it better. Whether it goes ahead or not is a moot point, because since then there's been a change in the banking industry. You and your listeners, your viewers, sorry, will be fully aware that the UK government is proposing changes to UK banks and how they're structured, so that the higher risk areas of banking, so-called casino banking, will be removed, and they'll be split away from the Joe Public, the retail operations. So there'll be a government guarantee for the retail operation, but not for the other areas of the bank's operations. So, leading on from that, when the proposals were published at the end of last year, it was a consequence of the Vickers report, and the UK government made no mention at all of the Crown dependencies, which includes the Isle of Man. Now, last month, the Chancellor, in a speech, did mention that they were reviewing it, and also they were reviewing the position of the Crown dependencies. Now, if deposits held by UK banks in the Isle of Man are regarded as being deposits held in the UK, then it will be covered, I would imagine, by the UK scheme, but we need clarity on that. So it's part of an evolving process at the moment.
Why on earth would the UK want to cover the Isle of Man banks? I mean, the way the banking and everything going is these days is to look after ourselves and not everybody else. Surely they'll just say, you do your own thing.
Because if the money that comes into the UK through the Crown dependencies, and it was £250 billion in 1 year, if they don't get that funding through the Crown dependencies, then the UK government will have to make up that shortfall. And where are they going to get the money from?
Joe Public, though, I mean, you just say you haven't probably explained this well enough, maybe. I mean, people at home who are watching this thing and going, what, another 100 million following on from your Pinewood money? And you can see where Alf Cannan's got the headline from now, that he's getting the headlines that we are using our reserves and they're being depleted.
No, we're not. We're just putting reserves in a different tin with a different label on it. That's all we're talking about here. It's a contingency, nothing more than that. The same as our general reserves are a contingency for a fall off in our revenue. But I have to say, if Mr Cannan was really concerned about our reserves, he'd be very supportive of the land swap deal in Kirkmichael, because that gives the government an opportunity to generate income and, through that, to replenish our reserves.
Well, you can talk about that if you want. I wasn't going on that subject, but I mean, that's an ongoing subject and looks like to roll on for some time to come, and you're heavily involved in that.
Well, we haven't put the curtain down yet. There's a select committee sitting on it. But as I say, something which will, I'm sure, if the planning goes through, deliver tangible benefits for the taxpayer, should be welcomed.
Just going back to this £100 million, though, I mean, it's there in case a bank fails, and banks are failing. We've had our own here in the Isle of Man, call on the money. I mean, it's not necessarily just put away to one side and never to be touched, it could well be used, and that could be £100 million gone.
We have a liability under the Depositors Protection Scheme anyway, and really all we're doing is we're just giving liquidity to the fund, nothing more than that.
And are we playing catch up or play with the Channel Islands on this? I mean, is this a good selling point for getting money into the Isle of Man, that people feel it's protected?
No, we all have our own ways of supporting our domestic industry. The Channel Islands have been very, very successful, but their banking sector and the finance sector is much bigger as a percentage of their GDP, that's their national income, than the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man's GDP is much more broadly spread, which has stood us in very good stead during the recent downturn.
And quickly, what about unemployment rates? They have gone up again.
The rate has gone up to 2.2%, but when you compare that with what we're seeing elsewhere, the UK 10%, and continental Europe, some areas much, much higher than that, I think we're doing very well. The economy's still growing, and the revenue coming into government is on target.
Okay, I think we've asked this before, but do you think it's peaked now at 2.2, or is it still likely to keep going?
I'm not sure. I couldn't give a straight answer, but then you wouldn't expect that from a politician in a way. But I couldn't give you a straight answer because there's too many uncertainties out there. We still have the Eurozone problems, the Greek problems, and they seem to be rolling out into Spain and Italy now as well. So I don't know where it's going to stop. But certainly at the moment, I'm reasonably comfortable that the projections contained within our budget, which was delivered in February, are still valid.
And were you following the Chief Minister on the no independence now way of going forward?
Full square behind him.